Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. In this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Gentleman's Magazine from May 1800, and this article is entitled Singular Instances of Tapping for the Dropsy. Now, I am aware what dropsy is, which you may not be. Dropsy is an older term for basically edema, is the word we use today. It means swelling, like water weight. There are different things that can cause it. There are some causes that could be like a heart condition or a kidney problem, but there's also just edema for the sake of edema. Some people just swell up for no apparent reason, even though all their tests come back negative. So I'm not sure what they mean. I'm wondering if tapping in this case means like it's kind of like an alternative to like acupuncture, where you're not actually puncturing the skin, you're just tapping on their slight pressure points. So this is what I'm picturing in my mind. I don't know if that is what this is about. So we are about to find out together if that's really what they mean or if they mean something completely different. So let's find out. Mr. Urban, May 10. You're mentioning in your last month's obituary, page 390, the case of a lady of middle age who was tapped 72 times, is my motive for troubling you with the following epitaph in Bunhill Fields. Here lies Dame Mary Page, relict of Sir Gregory Page, barrister, is that what that means? She departed this life March 4, 1728, in the 56th year of her age. In 67 months, she was tapped 66 times, and had taken away 240 gallons of water without ever repining at her case or even fearing the operation. Maitland History of London, page 775. See an instance of extraordinary tapping in volume 68, 632, on Mr. Dobson, who underwent this operation 86 times and had 202 gallons taken from him, and died aged 54, June 1798. Will not some of your ingenious correspondents favor you with a good drawing of Bedford House before its demolition, on a larger scale than it has hitherto been engraved, or say where it has been engraved, and with a plan of the alterations, should we say improvements, on the site of Bedford House and Fields and round the Foundling Hospital? Q. Okay, well, they have certainly sparked my curiosity, and let's do some Googling. Okay. Thank you, Google, for knowing everything. Here we go. Okay, dropsy. I'm just going to Google it. Pathology, a condition characterized by accumulation of watery fluid in the tissues or body cavity. Yeah, I did know that. And then it leads us to the Wikipedia article on edema. So edema, also known as fluid retention, dropsy, hydropsy, and swelling, is the buildup of fluid in the body's tissue. Most commonly, the legs or arms are affected. Symptoms may include skin which feels tight, the area may feel heaviness and joint stiffness. Other symptoms depend on the underlying cause. Causes may include venous insufficiency, I think I have a friend who has that, heart failure, kidney problems, low protein levels, liver problems, or deep vein thrombosis, infections, angioedema, certain medications, and lymphedema. It may also occur in immobile patients, stroke, spinal cord injury, aging, or with temporary immobility such as prolonged sitting or standing, and during menstruation or pregnancy. The condition is more concerning if it starts suddenly, or pain or shortness of breath is present. Yeah, because that can lead to like a heart condition, yeah? Treatment depends on the underlying cause. If the underlying mechanism involves sodium retention, decreased salt intake, and a diuretic may be used. Elevating the legs and support stockings may be useful for edema of the legs. Older people are more commonly affected. The word is from the Greek, I don't speak Greek, meaning swelling. So, edema. Yeah, the Greek edema, but I wonder where the word dropsy came from. I'm just going to ask Google really quick. Etymology of dropsy. It's Middle English shortening of a dropsy, earlier form of the obsolete hydropsy, via Old French and Latin from the Greek hydrops or dropsy from hudor, which is water. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. I'm just curious. Okay, specific area. I am going to skip this part because they didn't talk about that. What I want to know is kind of the history and treatments of the past, which they may or may not say here. So it sounds to me like tapping is some sort of way to drain the water, but I don't know how they would do that because it's in like all of your cells, isn't it? Like how would they get rid of the water and drain it and to the point where they could measure it without, I don't know. Like, I don't know how they would do that. Because today we use medications to do that, which gets rid of the water out of all of the cells, but like, and like compression socks and things like that, which they could have used. Yeah, they could have had compression socks, but I just think it's unlikely because, like, I'm not sure how they would have done it back then. Treatment. Okay, so when possible, treatment involves resolving the underlying cause. Many causes of heart or kidney disease are treated with diuretics. Yeah. Treatment may also involve positioning the affected body parts to improve drainage. For example, swelling in feet or ankles may be reduced by having the person lie down in bed or sit with the feet propped up on cushions. Intermittent pneumatic compression can also be used to pressurize tissue in a limb, forcing the fluids, both blood and lymph, to flow out of the compressed area. Okay, well, so edema is not a like diagnosis, it's a symptom, yeah? Let's see what else we can look up. How about historical treatment of dropsy? Ooh, history of edema and its management. This is from the NIH, I'm sorry, National Center for Biotechnological Information, National Library of Medicine. Okay, sorry, that's not the NHS. My bad. Okay, a history of edema and its management. So let's just read the abstract. I don't think that we can read the whole article, but it is quite interesting. The obvious disfigurement caused by clinically evident edema has been a matter of medical concern for ages. Most of the early writings on the subject, Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, center on dropsy, its causes and management. While reference to the heart is made in these ancient texts, much of the focus is on the abdominal or acidic accumulation of fluid. The role of the heart and dropsy of the chest began to be differentiated and attract attention sometime by the end of the 17th century and were well appreciated by the 18th century. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because we're in the end of the 18th century, yeah? By the beginning of the 19th century, the reports of John Blackall and Richard Bright provide new insight by differentiating dropsy into that of cardiac and renal origins. The role of salt, initially measured and thought of in terms of its anion chloride, began to be appreciated by the middle of the late 19th century. Its mobilization, however, remained problematic. The cure de chloration, whatever it says, which gained fame by the end of the 19th century, was not always a successful undertaking. So I guess that's like reducing the amount of salt in your diet? Yeah, but that only helps if you have a kidney issue, right? The treatment of dropsy, which centered on augmenting secretions, diaphoretics, purgatives, or mechanical removal of bodily fluids, bleeding, leaching, lancing, remained a frustrating and chancy undertaking for much of the time that medicine has had to deal with it. Although mercury had been advocated as a diuretic in the 16th century, even the organic mercurials that were introduced after World War II were limited in their effectiveness. The discovery of sulfanilamide-induced sodium bicarbonate diuresis in the late 1940s was to provide the first step in the new age of clinically effective diuretics, which began in the 1950s with the introduction of chlorothiazide, the first orally effective agent to mobilize sodium chloride. The subsequent introduction of more potent diuretics was made possible by concurrent advances in renal physiology and the understanding of the sodium handling by the kidney. Okay, the only time they mentioned the mechanical removal of fluid was when they mentioned bleeding. So they, bleeding, leaching, or lancing. It sounds to me like that's what they're talking about. Like, calling that tapping, I think, is really weird. Like, what are they, like a beer keg? You know what I mean? Like, that's, okay, that's weird. But apparently they used that as a way of reducing the general amount of fluid in the body, which then helped the body to regulate where the fluid was located, yeah? But that over time, apparently these people that were mentioned had a lot of fluid removed from their body over the course of time. Anyways, I am so glad we live today and not then. Oh gosh. I mean, just imagine having a symptom like swelling, like edema, that you just straight up couldn't treat. Like, that's crazy to me. And that they would do this quote unquote tapping, which is actually leaching, and they would bleed you. I'll bet that caused some horrible side effects, including headaches, shortness of breath, like, because your body is slightly starved of oxygen without enough red blood cells. And even if the amount of water in the body is kind of okay. So it's just crazy to me that they would actually dehydrate you, basically, in order to, like, readjust where the water is. Did that help? Like, I'm sorry, I just have to ask that question. Did it help? Is bleeding effective treatment of dropsy? Okay, this is from ScienceDirect.com, and this is an article called Bloodletting as a Cure for Dropsy, Heart Failure Down the Ages. So I'll just read the abstract again. Background. Dropsy was a term to describe generalized swelling and was synonymous with heart failure. Its treatment options were scanty and were aimed to cause emptying of the system or to relieve fluid retention. These remedies were rudimentary, erratic in action, and associated with inconvenient side effects. Methods and results. Bloodletting, either by venesection or by leeches, was a popular way to alleviate symptoms from dropsy. Although bloodletting, purgatives, cauterization, and Southey tubes were drastic, their use demonstrated that physicians were not powerless to help people with severe heart failure. Several centuries of intensive investigations in different areas of heart failure ended with the development of new therapeutic strategies that made bloodletting obsolete. Conclusion. In an area when adequate treatment of heart failure has become a reality, it is appropriate to acknowledge that those who paved the way to such great progress. Okay, section snippets. I'm just going to go ahead and read the rest because this is just an article preview. So, I'm hoping that this whets everyone's appetite to want to actually read it. But since we can't read the whole article anyway, I might as well just read the snippets that they have published for free. Section snippets. Origin of bloodletting. The therapeutic practice of bloodletting began in ancient times and was practiced well into the early 20th century. Bloodletting was performed by the Egyptian, Greek, and Roman cultures, and became very popular during medieval times, with its origin rooted in religious ceremonies. Conceptually, this method was designed to cleanse the body of impurities and excess fluid. Interestingly, Pliny's tall tale credited the origin of bloodletting to the hippopotamus in the history of the world. Okay. Okay, and now it's kind of like fizzling off, so I'm sure it kept going, but okay, bloodletting and heart failure. Dropsy, derived from the Greek word for water, was the term used for many centuries to define a syndrome of fluid overload and signified the manifestations of the syndrome of congestive heart failure. Early physicians, however, did not have the physiologic understanding to distinguish between disparate conditions, so this procedure was employed for a wide range of of such as agitated psychoses, which was helped by the sedating effect of profound hypotension induced by bloodletting. Sedating effect of profound hypotension. You know, that sounds horrible. It makes you tired if you lose enough blood. Yeah, it probably makes you pass out. Like, sheesh. Gosh. All right. Commentary. As we practice today in the comfort zone provided by the current therapy for heart failure, it is crucial to remember the efforts of the past. Discovery is often risky and complicated, yet the principles of clinical observation and determination to question the standard knowledge led to advances in the medical therapy for heart failure. Physicians throughout the centuries treated dropsy using bloodletting in different forms as a primary or adjunctive therapeutic strategy, as well as other forms. That was really interesting, and I kind of wish that I could read the whole article, but this is cool. Like this is the kind of article that you absolutely need when you're reading articles such as this that we're looking at today in the Gentleman's Magazine. So it sounds to me like their discussion of tapping the people who had dropsy is definitely bloodletting. Yeah? It sounds to me like there's no two ways about it. I find that really interesting. That was very interesting. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It's crazy to me to think of what kind of medical practices there were in the past and how far we have come, just how very far we have come from bloodletting to cure edema, to today's use of hydrochlorothiazide, which is much more effective, let's just put it that way, to treat this symptom, and the use of compression socks and things like this. If it's just like a vein insufficiency. I found that very, very interesting. So I am so happy that medical science has come so far from then, and we don't have to rely upon these old kinds of treatments. The only condition that I know of that is effectively treated by bloodletting is, what's it called? It's something like a person who has too much iron in their body. Like they naturally produce over too much iron, and it kind of poisons their blood after a while. So they actually found it effective to bleed them. And as far as I'm aware, that's the only condition that is literally treated by bloodletting. Like they should give that blood to somebody who is low on iron. You know, it's not a condition I have, and I can't remember the name of it. Let me look it up really quick. Hemochromatosis. There you go. So as far as I'm aware, that's the only condition that is treated by bloodletting. And if there's any other ones, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested if there was another one. But yeah, I thought that was really fascinating today, and I hope you did too. So if you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.